Hey guys, Tom Taylor with Rock News Desk here with you. It's a tough subject for most die-hard Kiss fans. While everyone truly loved original drummer Peter Criss, for many of us his 1980 replacement Eric Carr, the Fox, was one of a kind, and the absolute best possible guy to take over the drumming duties. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism over the years, as some people have claimed they mistreated drummer Eric Carr leading up to his death from cancer in 1991. Some of Eric's family members claim the two founding members turned their backs on him in his final days. Whether they did or whether they didn't has been the subject of a lot of debate. So where does all that stand? Well, let's look at some of the things we know. Paul Stanley once told Howard Stern, "I'm not a big believer in mistakes. I believe that everything you do gets you to where you wind up, and without those mistakes, you wouldn't succeed on the level you have. But the one thing that I think personally was a mistake was when our second drummer, Eric Carr, got sick with cancer. He told Stern he had heart cancer, which there's about 6 cases of a year. At first, we didn't believe it could possibly be true, and over a short time, it became clearer. He had major heart surgery, and I think that the brain just doesn't let you comprehend, at least it didn't in that case, mortality. I didn't believe that he could possibly die. I thought this was a new ongoing condition. Okay, he's got this, and then it'll go away. And had I known, I think we would have treated it more sensitively. We took care of him. We paid his medical bills, but we also told him we're going to continue as a band while he's sick. Well, he wasn't while he's sick. He was dying." In his 2014 book, Face the Music, Paul admitted he and Gene may not have been as sensitive towards Eric as they should have been, but it wasn't out of malice or a sense of not caring. Eric had been diagnosed with a rare form of heart cancer in 1991. The band was set to record the song God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too for the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack, and Eric wanted to play drums on the track. With the recent diagnosis, Paul and Gene told him to focus on getting healthy and hire drummer Eric Singer to play on the track instead. Carr did provide backing vocals for the song and even appeared in the music video. At the shoot for the video, he had to wear a massive wig that looked like his normal hair because his hair had fallen out from the cancer treatments. But not playing drums on the song was hard for Carr to take. Eric desperately wanted to work on the song, but he was still very frail, Stanley wrote in his book. "If I knew then what I know now, I never thought this might be his last chance to perform. I would have let him play. But at the time, I was sure that he would beat the odds." Things got even more strained once the band decided to record their new album, Revenge, and again use Eric Singer on drums. At that point, Paul wrote, Eric pulled away. Gene had a somewhat different story. Back in 2002, while on a book tour in Australia, he told fans at a Q&A that after Eric Carr had open heart surgery, the doctors found the tumors. He said, "Unfortunately, the cancer spread, and we knew then he only had a matter of months to live. We sat down with Eric and told him that the band still had to move forward, which was when we recruited Eric Singer and told Eric Carr he had been replaced. Eric was definitely upset with the decision, and when Eric was then released from the hospital and we were doing the God Gave Rock and Roll to You video, Eric asked if he could be a part of the video, which we obliged to. Eric struggled to meet the video demands and did end up completing it, and unfortunately, a few months later, Eric died. But that comes into question if you believe information given by former Kiss manager Bill Aucoin. Now, Bill was not Kiss's manager when Eric Carr died, but he claims to have spoken to Eric after Kiss fired him. At the 1997 Atlanta Kiss Expo, Bill said, "That's probably one of the saddest stories. While I wasn't there at the time, I know because Eric was calling and talking to me. You have to understand he was always the fourth man out. He was never considered by Gene and Paul in particular as a member of Kiss because he was a hired hand and that was it. He never really had to say anything. So over the years, he knew some things were right and some things weren't, and he also knew that he wasn't being treated well. Sadly, when he had the heart condition, and this is something that I don't think was Gene's fault per se, but what happened at the end was rather cruel, and I think that his family always thought that maybe his last stroke when he died happened because of a conversation with Gene. The sad part was that Gene and Paul had called to let him know that he absolutely was not going to be in Kiss anymore. In a month, they were canceling everything to do with Kiss, which meant that his medical insurance was going to be canceled. Well, unfortunately, whether or not this had any, I don't know. He was very upset over the whole thing anyway and had called me several times in the weeks prior. But that was the night he had the stroke and died. You will never meet a sweeter guy than Eric. Now, the manager who was present during this time was Larry Maer. On the Three Sides of the Coin podcast, Maer attempted to set the record straight. I've read over the last 20-some years, and some of it came from Eric Carr's family, but I read all these stories about how non-feeling Gene and Paul were about Eric, and how they were cold-hearted and firing him in place of Eric Singer. And listen, I was there. I was in the meetings, and I can tell you it was a hard decision, but the fact of the matter is he was not going to recover. He had cancer of the heart, and I think it went to his brain, but he was not going to survive. The band had to go on, and unfortunately, the guys were in a position where they had to make a change. It was not cold-hearted. It was not non-feeling. A lot of people have held grudges against them for many years, and I've read many, many interviews where they've gotten slammed, and it boiled my blood, and I've wanted to reply many times, and I haven't. So I'm doing it with you guys. All the criticism of Gene and Paul about the handling of the changing from Eric Carr to Eric Singer is bullshit. They were totally respectful. They were crushed by his death. I went to the funeral with them. They were totally devastated by his death. He was a brother to them, but unfortunately, he had a disease that he was not going to recover from. And the band had to keep moving forward, and that's the end of the story. Anybody that says anything negative about them in regards to Eric Carr doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. It killed them to have to do it, but they had no other choice. In his book, Paul said he thought he was doing what was best for Eric. We assured him we would pay all his bills and keep his insurance going, he said. I reiterated that, in the grand scheme of things, the band mattered little. He had to focus on doing whatever he could to get well, without compromise. According to Paul, in his book, when he received a call in the fall of 1991 from a friend who told him Eric had suffered a stroke, he said he called Eric's family, but no one would take his calls. He didn't understand why. He said he called daily to no avail. Paul said when they went to Carr's funeral, he could smell hostility from the family. He said Eric's longtime girlfriend was filled with anger at him and Gene. She told them Eric had claimed they had booted him from the band and didn't support him. Paul said, quote, "It simply wasn't true." He went on to say everyone there seemed to have the impression Eric had been cut off, but he hadn't been cut off. Once we told him we were going to record Revenge, he cut himself off from us. I didn't feel like the bad guy, and it was strange to be treated that way. During the service, it was as if a switch had been thrown inside me, and I started sobbing uncontrollably, just bawling my eyes out. Though I thought I had made the best choices at the time, I began to realize I'd been wrong. We had cut Eric off in perhaps the worst way, by denying him what mattered most to him, his place in KISS. So there's some of the information, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think that Paul and Gene were cold-hearted? Do you think that Eric's family had the right idea? So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe. You guys take care.